I believe that anything that you take care of is just going to become more beautiful, and that totally includes your money, honey. I am Shani Curry, and I am bringing to you what I have been giving to my clients for the last 15 years, which is called money therapy. I think that largely we do an excellent concept of getting ourselves and others to spend money. And I would like to get us to disconnect from just the spending and do a little bit more thinking, right? A little bit more thinking and a little bit more feeling. I had the opportunity to really engage with my own money therapy again and again. I think that it's not something that ever really ends. So I want to invite you to be a part of my money therapy, as I also give you the opportunity to really just trigger yourself into your own version of money therapy and whatever that might look like for you. There's just a few different times where my relationship with money has been really, really good. And sometimes I'd like for it to be a little bit better than what it was. And I want to tell you about those things. Hopefully, while I share those things with you, it helps you to reduce shame that you might feel for those multiple phases that you have undergone with your money. I hope that I can offer you a level of inspiration from sharing some of the wonderful things that I've done for money when it comes to paying off a house, when it comes to paying off a car, when it comes from just going, a few years without a car payment because I was able to get all of my cars for an auction. Those are some really high points. There's also some really low points where money really was there for me. I think that sometimes people say that money is the root of all evil. And I think that the evil in it is when we abuse ourselves and we abuse others when it comes to either gain access to money or to stop others from gaining access to it. So I'd like to start by sharing just one of the times where I felt that money was definitely one of my friends. I felt like it was one of my friends. Largely, this has to end. And as you are coming and joining into the story, you'll hear me talk more about when I was in this car accident. My money therapy story has stopped again and again and again, but I'd like to kind of start at the space of just kind of like tragic, right? Tragic when money was there for me. At that particular time, when I got into this car accident with this semi truck, I was undergoing so much PTSD that I could not really contain myself. I really could not contain myself. And while I did have many of my friends that you'll be able to meet through the show, I had attorneys to support me during that period of time. I had one of my close friends as a therapist to support me, and a few different other professionals that was able to do that. But I'm really thankful for that particular time space of just where I was when it came to financial resources at that particular time. And that will be the inspired point. Largely prior to that, I had used my platform to really engage people in minimalism. I'm one of those people that have maybe 5 pair of shoes. You will see me wear an abundance of dresses, but you'll probably see me with my 5 pair of shoes. I have maybe about 5 purses. I'm really a minimalist. I will count the amount of forks and knives, and I'll check when, hey, we're out of it. It's time to go and get another one. So I can be a little obsessive, in a particular way. But largely, my platform that I spoke to individuals about was about guiding people into minimalism and helping them to reduce the amount of waste. And I didn't know that I had lived my life in such a way because it helped me to prepare for one of the times where I really needed to have access to financial resources. So the first level of inspiration that I want to guide you to is disconnect some of your wastefulness and start planning for some of the times in your lives that you're really going to possibly need some money. Sometimes I know we talk about needing money in the event that we are going to retire, right? So we talk about planning for that. Sometimes we talk about planning for emergencies, but some of the emergencies that we're guided to kind of plan for would be, oh, I need to get myself a new tire, or I need to get a new AC. Sometimes one of those unexpected emergency is something like a chronic illness, right? Sometimes one of those unexpected spaces for you may be something like me, this car accident that I had the opportunity to be a part of, the unfortunate opportunity. I call it an opportunity because it is where I met another part of my adult self. I met a part of my strength. I met a part of my tolerance for myself and for others. And I just want to engage you a little bit in that particular story, hoping that you can find some spaces that you can navigate for yourself. So at that time where I find my mind to be so deeply fractured, I was glad that at that time prior to that I wasn't very wasteful. When this particular accident happened, it happened maybe about 2 months after the pandemic. So the world was shut down anyway. So there wasn't a whole bunch that I could do in terms of just overspending or going outside in the first place. So I did need that particular space to be able to heal my mind. But I was really thankful at that time that I had access to financial resources. Because I really had to interview not only therapists during that time, but I also had to be able to interview psychiatrists and psychologists at that particular time. So when you have access to more resources, it gives you the opportunity to exercise choices, even at a time where I largely had a lot of post-traumatic stress. I was anxious. I was mentally exhausted. I just didn't, really particularly like the level of just anxiousness that I was experiencing in my mind, in my physical body. So I want to guide people and inspire them in terms of just not necessarily preparing for some of these very difficult times, but also just living in a way that there is a time where I may need money. Right? I may need money more than what I actually think so. So on my website, there is a budget that you can go and find. And some people think when I mention the word budget that I want to see how much coffee you're buying. Really not interested in this $5 to $8, $10 coffee that you buy. Now, it will add up. If you're a little excessive, it will add up. But that's not what the budget is for. It is for you to look at your income, and it's for you to look at your expenses and see just how much you have left over. And being able to have a base level conversation with yourself to say, how long could I actually live with what is being left over? How long could I live through this particular space? For me, during that time where I really had to go through the process of interviewing therapists, psychologists, all those particular things while my mind and my body was healing, for that period of time, it took me a total of 6 months. It took me 6 months. And for some people, 6 months doesn't sound like a lot in terms of going through a space of being fragmented and being able to rehabilitate yourself. For some people, 6 months doesn't seem like a long time, but it's a long time, especially when you have to live off the resources that you already have access to. Maybe you're not working as much. So I guide you in that particular story. Just do a budget. Even if you don't go to my website, just write down what your income is, what your expenses are, and look at your magic number. That magic number is going to tell you, let's say it's $100 and you say, okay, well, I need to put that $100 to the side. In 6 months, I'll have $600, right? That might be your number. Maybe your number is $1,000. So if you put $1,000 to the side in 6 months, you're going to have access to $6,000, right? In that space of just going through some levels of that. And before, I was able to kind of share that information without having some of the background conversation of my own story, right? But just because I've lived in that particular space, my two boys during that particular time, I remember one of my biggest fears is just making sure that, am I going to be okay to take care of my children? Am I going to be okay? Am I going to experience less anxiety inside of my mind? Am I going to, at some point, be able to cope with the amount of physical pain that I'm undergoing? Am I going to be able to mother at the level that I was at before? That was one of my questions. And I'm really thankful at that particular time that I was not also thinking about how I was going to feed them, right? That can also be there. So sometimes when I'm guiding people towards just a level of minimalism, not scarcity. Scarcity and minimalism is a totally different thing. Scarcity is in terms of that, oh my goodness, I'm going to spend this $100 and I don't know when I'm ever going to see $100 again. That would be a level of scarcity. Oh my goodness, I'm going to spend this $1,000 and I don't know if I'm ever going to make another $1,000. That's a level of scarcity where the mind does not even believe that I can be creative enough to create another opportunity for itself. So if you feed yourself that type of information over and over again, then you will find that you are in this space of scarcity. But there's another space that you can move into where it's mindfulness in terms of minimalism, right? So that you're not in wastefulness, especially when we live in this social space where everyone is promoting that you should have everything now. Right? Now. If there's anything that you should do it right now, right? So just being able to protect your mind and protect your money in that particular space of this is how much I have access to after I pay all of my bills. This is my income, this is my expenses, and this is what's left over to be able to guide you through that particular space. Also, what I got really good at that particular time, which I think was a gift, and largely that's one of the compliments that my therapist would give me, is my awareness, right? Just having a level of awareness of where you are mentally can really save you, right? In those moments where you're moving through the experience of feeling like, oh my goodness, I just feel a little overwhelmed. I am afraid to do anything, right? If you do it for maybe about 2 days, right, that might be okay. But if you do it for 2 months, that might mean you're at that space where you need to bring in a community. Sometimes community for you is money, right? That might be what you have. That might be your village. That might be the way that you pay for your insurance, the way that you can hire a babysitter. Maybe you can hire a nanny, whatever it is. It might be hire a therapist. That might be your space right there. You might also have access to another level of a village, right? Where you need to communicate with someone else to kind of let them into where you are. Also, being able to kind of recognize when I'm feeling stressed, right? And how I am connecting that level of stress to how I am relating to money, right? So I would say the period of time that I share, and I'll go in and out of sharing that space. The reason why I like to share that space with individuals is just because with my clients, sometimes they find themselves through the space of job loss, through divorce, through losing a home, and the amount of just like irrational behavior that their biochemistry is supporting them to kind of act on. I have to share with them at a time where I felt that level of lostness, right? Where I felt that level of just hyperactivity, where I just felt that I really wasn't in control, right? So I want to be able to have that level of relatability. And sometimes people compliment on it. They say, Shani, you really feel really grounded. Well, it's because I've been shaken. I've gone through that level, right? So I want to continue to be able to gift you with the awareness that you are being shaken. And once you recognize it, that you're able to put yourself in the space of professionals that can guide you through your next space, okay? So that's a little bit of money therapy that I want to share with you in those spaces, helping you to tap into avoidance, knowing when you are avoiding your finances. One of the triggering spaces for me is that I can be totally fine, but if I have to sit with a medical professional and start talking to them about that one time that I got into a car accident, I notice that I'm able to kind of get triggered back into something that happened to me maybe about 5 years ago, right? So giving them that disclaimer. So in some of these relationships where you are forming, either you're forming it with a financial advisor, maybe you're forming it with a tax professional, maybe you're forming it with an accountant, maybe you're forming it with an attorney, you need to give them that level of vulnerability about yourself to kind of let them know, hey, listen, there's a time that I experienced loss, and this kind of shapes the way that I make decisions. It shapes the way how fast I move. It shapes the way that I don't move at all. It shapes the way that I can be wasteful. I just want to give you with that level of awareness as well as the level of vulnerability. Okay. Also, in this particular space, I want to set up some expectations about what you're going to gain from tuning in with us. One of the things, obviously, you're going to gain from my experience of just working with individuals over the last 15 years and really kind of allowing them to tell me about where they are and where they want to be and how they can kind of get snagged in that. And I believe that we learn a lot in stories, right? We're able to kind of do a little bit of mirroring, right? Not in a mirroring way where it becomes like envy, right? Because that's the trap. We don't want to get into the envy trap, right? We want to stay in that inspiration trap, right? When we begin to kind of social mirror, where we're seeing, oh, there's something about that person's story that is a lot like mine. Maybe if I added a little more of this and less of that, that I could experience my own version of this goodness that they have. So I will be sharing lots of my professional friends with you that have helped and shaped me in some of my really good times and times where I needed to perform a little bit better. So when you tune in to Money Therapy, it's not just going to be the standard level of what you should not buy, right? It's not going to be that. If you do hear me indulging you into a conversation about what you should not buy, it's largely to get you to think about why do you continue to buy the same things that largely do not serve you. I will guide you to looking through your habits of duplication, right? So if you're saying that, okay, this month I am going to save $1,000 and I'm going to put it in my savings account, but somehow when you put that $1,000 in your savings account, it ends up in retail therapy, right? So it's not the judgment that we want to connect you to, right? What the children say, we listen, but we do not judge. I do a little judging, just a little bit, no condemnation, just a little judging, right? Just a little judging, just to be able to bring you into the awareness of, behavioral, just duplication, just doing the same thing over and over again, the level of redundancy that doesn't really serve you. I also want to use this space to get you to journal. I want to get you to journal. That is one of the tools that I definitely use to get me through some of those difficult spaces. It is something that I use with my clients when they are just very stagnant in that particular space. So there is a form of clients where I can meet with them and we can look at their income and look at their expenses, and they say, Shani, I want to purchase a house in the next 6 months, and it's great. And we can go, okay, you can do this, 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 and this, and then everything will be fine, right? And they go and they execute, and it is great, and they end up with the house, and they get tons of equity, and this is really good, right? This is good. They go, and then they replicate and they become a house hacker, and that's great. And then there's another space where I will say to an individual, okay, I know your goal is to be able to save $10,000. We looked at your income, we looked at your expenses, and it looks like if you were able to do one of two things, either reduce some of your retail therapy, if you are willing to call some of your creditors and ask them, hey, can I reduce the interest rates on some of my credit cards for a period of time? If you're willing to get into some level of balance transfer so you can get rid of some of your debt that's at a higher interest rate and convert it over to something that's at a lower interest rate for introductory period of time. Those are all just kind of habit forming, habit changing kind of things. But when I kind of notice that my clients may need to get into a space of either me referring them over to a therapist that can kind of help them with some of this chronic overspending, I like to call it personal violation of the self, when you know that a particular thing isn't good for you, but somehow you just can't stop yourself from doing it. I'll kind of recommend either, hey, maybe you should work with a therapist, or maybe a little bit of journaling, because your awareness is a gift, right? Is a gift. If you are inspired through this particular show to go and look at your income and look at your expenses, and you do not like that number, you can sit with that, don't liking it for a period of time, but don't rest there. Right? Don't stay in that particular space, right? Don't stay at this negative number that you no longer like. I'd like to engage you somehow in the space of being able to say, you know what, Shani, I don't like this negative number. Here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to do less of this and more of that. So less of this may mean, you know what, I travel a little bit too much. Sometimes I talk to some of my clients and I'll say, oh, you were doing really, really well. You were able to come up with $20,000 here, and you have yourself a really good nest egg, but somehow it looks like you depleted this. What started happening? And then we look at the transaction. I see a little bit too many travel plans, right? Just a little bit too much. Sometimes I will look closely at someone's habits and I will find that they do a little bit more retail therapy than they actually need to do at this particular time, right? And then I'll start really guiding them through the experience of like, how do you define this as a reward? Right? How do you actually reward? Because sometimes individuals will save, a level of money, and then their reward will be something that completely depletes all of the savings. So then it's like 6 months just gone down the drain. So largely, one of the gifts that you're going to get from tuning in is definitely that awareness that you're going to give to yourself. And then I'm going to constantly prompt you. I'm also going to be sharing with you, the good thing about me is I'm a grower. I'm not going to stay the same. I am going to evolve in my thinking, in my doing, and my being. And I want to invite you to be a witness to me. I am always making financial decisions. Sometimes I make them a little bit slower just because I'm an observer, but I will be bringing you into some of my financial purchases. I purchased a car, I think maybe about a year and a half ago. It took me about 3 years to purchase a car. So when I tell you that I'm one of those people that will observe the market and, over research something, and then you can kind of push me and say, Shani, come on, man, let's get to it, right? I even remember a period of time where I really had to coach myself out of shopping in the thrift store. And I was for the thrift store for a period of time. I probably lived in the thrift store for maybe about 5 years, especially when my boys were a lot smaller, and $50 just felt like too much for me. So I lived and breathed inside of the thrift store. I could take $50 and get 5 dresses, right? And now I take $50 and I get 1. But I remember a space that I had to kind of coach myself into and say, okay, Shani, well, we don't just have to come to a thrift store now. We have this amount of money and we can move forward, right? So I'm also going to be guiding and sharing you where I sometimes get stuck. I think oftentimes where individuals are sitting behind a microphone that we will think that just because this person has information that they has all the implementation, right? I think I have some of the implementation, but I think that I too can put my foot to the fire. So you're going to, when you tune in, you're going to see me going through my transformations because I think that we do learn through stories when we keep the space of inspiration and then we don't get into that space of social comparing, because that's where we get really, really lost in the sauce. I think a large part of the social space should be used for inspiration, but when it starts to guide us into envy and jealousy and all this social comparison, I think that's when we kind of got to turn it off. So I hope that in this first episode that it gives you the real opportunity to be able to understand what my goal is with the Money Therapy Journal, to get you to, number one, become aware of where you are financially, and then to gift you with a level of inspiration so that you can move from that place wherever it may be. And then I'm going to share some tools. Sometimes those tools will be actual tools like my book, Money Therapy, that you can grab, or sometimes it will be a professional. So I want to gift you with tools that you can use. Now, I do want to tell you that anything that you take care of will become more beautiful. And that includes your money, honey.